Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes, bringing you another Old Man Orange Presents via VHS episode. One of them from the rarities vault that we have from back in the day that just never got put out. So come join us for another fun-filled retro movie review. Let's jump on in.
So welcome to another episode of the Via VHS Retro Movie Podcast. Leslie, as always, joined by Spencer Scott Holmes. And this week we are going into a magical time, 80s fantasy movies, high fantasy, dark fantasy, big thing in the 80s. Pretty much more of them didn't work than did work. You have a lot of bombs, you have a lot of busts in there, but you have, some really good ones, some hidden gems, some big movies. And Willow is kind of the end of an era movie for like 80s fantasy. You don't really get anything after that in 89 or the rest of 88. You have some movies with fantasy elements, but nothing like Willow. And it's kind of the end of an era. And this is Lucasfilm. It's Industrial Light and Magic. Big movie for a lot of childhoods. And I'm excited to talk about this one.
Oh, yeah, same here. This one's a humongous flick for me growing up. I had a taped-off TV copy of it and watched the living daylights out of it. And it is that one where, like so many of the fantasy movies of the 80s, which are all kind of fantastic in their own different ways, this is kind of the first one that actually is successful because for some reason in the 80s, I don't know why, lo and behold, they became cult classics. But in the time, Labyrinth, Legend, none of those movies, Kroll, ever really made a whole lot of money at first. They made money as time went on. They made money from the VHS rentals and all that kind of stuff. And what I really think it was is pretty much kids of our generation were the ones that kind of made those movies become what they are today. But at the time period, they were a little bit of a hard sell where Willow finally comes in and makes pretty darn good money. Now, it doesn't make that Star Wars money, which I think is what everybody was thinking. But, realistically, for being a fantasy movie and so on like that, it more than quadruples its production costs.
Yeah, Willow was kind of a low-key hit. I think it just kind of gets crapped on because it was just a huge disappointment for Lucasfilm because, you have everything you need to make it successful. You got George Lucas, there to, creating the story. You have all the ILM guys there to do the effects. And there was so many great effects in all these fantasy movies from the 80s, but then this one's no different. In the context of the time, obviously as time goes on, some of the things don't age very well, but yeah, I mean, for little kids, this was great. And then for people who were kind of like, in their 40s, maybe even early 50s, the Ray Harryhausen kind of like fans.
Yep.
Jason the Argonauts, that kind of stuff, and all that stuff. It was really, really big for them too. So it was, there was a lot of those fan 80s just because the technology was there and the effects were there to really bring to life some of the things that they couldn't do in the past. And they're, experimenting, they're doing all this stuff and, the puppet work and just the makeup and all the things to just, 80s was the big era for practical effects. And that's why there were so many fantasy films. But this one was kind of the last one and maybe the best one.
Yeah. You know what? I could kind of see that because, it is pretty darn good. Now, I will say it's one of those films that I don't think's for everybody. Some people are going to think it's the most magical thing ever, and there's other people that might not get it. And then I always kind of wonder what this movie's like to, if you come to this, many years too late. It might be kind of a tough one. Granted, I watched this as a kid, growing up with my buddy Kyle and everything like that, and watched it a lot. So it always sticks out to me as one that I'm always very into and so on like that. And I guess even back in the day, it kind of gives us it's sort of like George Lucas's Lord of the Rings, in a sense. Like Lord of the Rings light, but it kind of carries a lot of those elements in there in a time period where realistically, other than the Lord of the Rings animated movie and so on like that, you don't really have that there. But I do think there was a lot of people, though, that were expecting it to be much more like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. And, since it was a little bit different from those two, I think maybe that was something that kind of put people off a bit.
I think people were expecting, I think ILM and I think Lucasfilm was expecting that because at this point, you've released 3 Star Wars movies. You released 2 of the 3 Indiana Jones movies. The other ones are probably in production at this time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everything's been a hit thus far. You've made money with everything thus far. And so you expect Willow just to be the next big franchise, you know, the next big one. It just didn't catch on like that. And it never was going to. There was nothing they could have done. It wasn't the time for it. And I think when it would have been the time to do it is right when Lord of the Rings came out, and you already have Lord of the Rings, so you don't need this, you know?
Yeah.
But that would have been the time, really, because I'm all for practical effects, but this film would have benefited from CGI a little bit. And yeah, it just wasn't the time. It was never going to be the big hit the other ones were, but it's a cult classic. I mean, it got you know, the revival. They got the Willow TV show.
Yeah. So it still made progress, and there is still a fan basis and so on. But you are kind of right, though. It is really, it's almost a movie that's like the total tail end of a generation, because everything sort of changes after Willow. And Willow kind of like adds up a lot of different styles of special effects, pretty much proto computer graphics. And granted, it does have a little bit of computer graphics in there with the whole morphing thing, since that's where that effect was invented, was for this movie. But beyond that, though, you literally have claymation, you have puppets, you have stop motion animation, you know, you got hand painted animation and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of different like variations that have been, you know, brought up over the years that are all coming together to really make Willow stand out and feel pretty darn epic and so on like that. But in like less than 5 years, you know, Jurassic Park comes out. So it goes to show like how big of a change that the special effects come. You know, Terminator 2 comes out and only a couple years past this, you know, and that really shifts it into the 90s one, where this is like the total tail end of 80s, you know, and just kind of bringing it on. I guess you would say Last Crusade kind of keeps that last little bit of the, it's 90, but like it's literally about as the end of the 80s as you can get. But Willow has all that wrapped up there towards the end too.
Yeah, this is definitely an end of the era kind of film. And, you know, you look at like the big films in '89, it's like, you know, Batman and Lethal Weapon and all these kind of things. So it's just, it's, you know, things are changing. And, you know, we've talked about before, Days of Thunder was the film that finally killed the 80s, I think, because it just, you don't really get 90s from them until Phantom Menace, like more than 10 years later.
Yeah, there's like a couple other like special effects driven movies that are kind of just used as like George Lucas experimental things, and then of course we had the Young Indiana Jones series. I guess that fills in that middle void, you know, realistically. But yeah. This kind of is sort of, it's the last big, you know, George Lucas movie for a while, for sure. Other than Last Crusade. I keep forgetting. That's truly, I guess, the last one, but it's in the title.
Yeah, that was the real end of an era of, you know, Lucasfilm has never, to me, it's never matched that era. I mean, people love the prequels and, you know, a couple of these last 2 Indiana Jones films, you know, there's things to like about them, but it's not like the, you know, late 70s, early 80s Lucasfilm. It's just, they're never going to reach that again. But I guess before we get too far into the review, we should just head on into the tail of the tape.
Yes, the tale of the tape. I got the even tape right here too. The original version of Willow. You got,
look at that.
Oh yeah, look at that nice one. See, this is like, it's a good looking one too.
This might be the oldest tape I have.
Well, this is a straight 80. I have some like 83 tapes, so. But it is a nice. There's some 80s tapes always stand out. They just look a lot nicer than by the time you get to the 90s cheaper tapes. They got some.
Yeah,
they got some. They're heavier. They're just a little bit more well made. Granted, let's be honest. A lot of people in the 80s couldn't afford these tapes, so that's why there's so much taped off TV material.
Yeah, it's. I mean, they're thick. I think the oldest ones I have the same spine, and it's the Ghostbusters movies.
Yep.
Yeah, those I think are the oldest ones I have. I don't have anything from '83. I don't have anything that old, but I would say those are probably 85, 80, maybe 86. So they're a little older too. But yeah, let's jump into the tail of the tape. So tail of the tape, this is when we kind of go back to when the film was released. We look at, kind of everything involved and just the box office and some of the other things that were related to the film, the tie-ins and different things like that. So, obviously, Willow, 1988, directed by Ron Howard. He's fresh off Cocoon. You get the screenplay by Bob Dolman, and based on a story by Star Wars creator George Lucas. Starring Warwick Davis as Willow Ufgood, Val Kilmer as the rogue swordsman Madmartigan, Joanne Whalley as Sorsha, and Jean Marsh as the villainous Queen Bavmorda. Well, she's awesome in this fucking thing. She's like my favorite. I think she's my favorite performance of the whole thing. Released on May 20th, 1988. So we're going to look at the box office real quick. And this is an interesting one because, you're kind of easing into summer, so you don't have the mega hits. So it's kind of a weird eclectic group compared to what we, like last week, it was like, we did The Rock. It was like Twister, Mission Impossible, like hit after hit after hit.
It's like, what do you go see that weekend? You know what I mean? That's literally what it is.
Well, this it's really the same. It's like, what do you go see this weekend, but just not as a high of a level as, last week. But you would still have the same conundrum, I think. But number one this week at the box office, Willow is opening this week. Number two, you have Crocodile Dundee 2.
Oh, I love that one.
I barely remember two. I barely remember.
All three of them are really good.
Rambo 3.
Ooh, got another classic right there.
Number 3. Friday the 13th, The New Blood. And then 5.
What's that one? 7?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not super
I think so.
familiar with that. Rest of the top 10, you have Colors, Beetlejuice, Shakedown, Moonstruck, Above the Law, and Biloxi Blues.
Yeah, so you got a bunch of good stuff right there.
Yeah, it's solid. It's not like the big, meaty one like we had last week with The Rock, but it's a very solid one. 88 wasn't the best movie year ever either. Finished 12th at the 1988 box office, had a budget of around $35 million, grossed about $137.6 million worldwide. So it was a moderate success. It did better worldwide than it did here. And I think VHS sales helped it a lot too, because it was definitely more of a, let's go rent this for the family, then drag the whole kids to the theater to see it. It's so weird that this one didn't pop off the way they thought it was going to. So the film had a budget of around $35 million, grossed about $137.6 million. It was more of a worldwide hit than it was like a domestic hit. Like it did okay here.
Well, I think fantasy kind of has a little bit more like that wider appeal anyways, you know. It's one of those ones. Granted, once again, and we'll probably say this multiple times, I think that everybody was expecting that Indiana Jones Star Wars money out of this one, and when it doesn't deliver that, it makes it feel like it kind of failed, even though it's still doing pretty darn decent. And the fact that it also is the only fantasy movie that's really turning a big profit still.
Yeah, it was never going to be that hit. I don't know why they thought it was going to be, but I think people just wanted to do it. You know what I mean? Like this is right up. If you go watch that Industrial Light and Magic documentary, this is like right up their alley. This is what those guys wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I think it was kind of, their love note to film as more than it was, a true passion project that was going to make a lot of money. But so yeah, finished 12th at the 1988 box office, which is solid. And you had, I think, like a mini toy line. You did have a Happy Meal, but it was at Wendy's, a kid's meal, with some toys. And I think they had like Wendy's cups that were like magic cups. They like changed color when you put them in there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I had some of that going on, and of course I had the video games.
Yes, I tried playing that literally yesterday. I was like, I'm going to play through the arcade game, before we do the podcast initially when we thought. And I got about the level 2 or 3, and I was like, this game is hard as hell. Like, it's made by Capcom, so it looks really pretty and plays nice, but it's totally coming off that Ghosts and Goblins era, where it's just like, everything's out to kill you, and it's just there to suck your quarters away and so on like that. I got to a point where I got to an island and I couldn't figure out how to get off the island. I was just like, every time I jumped off it, there was just water and you drown and they go, oh, there goes another quarter. There goes another quarter. Then there's a big knight there on the island swinging at Willow. It's just like, holy crap. But it's cool and it's worth checking out. But yeah, good credit to anybody who can actually finish that game. And anybody who finished that game in the arcade, you either were really rich or really skilled. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. So many of those games. It's amazing we love video games after the 80s when you look back at it in the early 90s, because so many of those things were just unbelievably difficult. Even the Ninja Turtles games, like you're selling these games to like 6-year-olds and you're like got these levels in there. You're like, why did we love that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they had to make them difficult back in the day. That was the thing is, well, let's be honest, the Willow arcade game was just made there to suck some money out of people. But, but other than that, though, it's like you had to make those like NES games difficult, because if they played like how games played nowadays, everybody would finish them like in like one rental on a Friday night. that they would never come back again. So it's like the whole point of making them difficult was that like they didn't want you to beat it right away. They didn't want you to go buy a $60 game, come home and beat it in 2.5 hours and be like, oh, no, that's it. I'm taking this back now.
Yeah, no, I thought at one point that, and it looks like I'm wrong about it, but I thought you had sent me a Willow pinball machine, but
I did. That was a modern one though, because I found that in Los Angeles at this kind of cool little pinball arcade my buddy Jack showed me. I believe that's where it was, and it was one of those, because there's that company Stern Pinball or whatever. They've been making all sorts of sweet new like modern day. They're all retrofied, but they're brand new ones. Like I mean, they've been doing 007 movies and all kinds of stuff. And I think I found a Labyrinth one, and then I found that Willow one. I was like, oh, this is badass. But yeah, it wasn't like an old one. They might have probably made it as like a tie-in when the new TV series or whatever came out.
That makes sense. Yeah, I thought I remember you sending me that. I'm like, maybe I'm just like imagining that, but I thought you had sent me something about that.
Yeah, and then there's another Willow game on NES too that I tried out last night too, and it plays kind of like in a Legend of Zelda style, literally.
Yeah, I see. I remember that one. I think I had it. I think my mama picked it up at like a thrift store or something. And I remember not being too impressed with it, but it does look like Zelda a lot.
Yeah,
which makes sense. Like, when you think about it. But yeah, I mean, decently, successful, moderately successful here. Did better overseas. Did really well on VHS. I mean, Willow just was, it's kind of a low key hit. It really, really is. It just took some time for people to really understand it, and I think that, Lucasfilm for so long viewed it as the bastard child because it just didn't do what they wanted to do. And then after it was released too, you also have like these books. There was a book series released, and George Lucas hated it. Absolutely hated it. I've never read any of them, but from what I don't know if you have either, but from what I understand, they're terrible.
See, I haven't. I saw them pop up when I was doing some research, and I saw that. It's funny, George Lucas hates him, though it says that him and Chris Claremont's the guy who pretty much wrote all the major X-Men stories. Like any of the main X-Men stories that you generally, because people say it's like, oh, Stan Lee, he started X-Men, but then Chris Claremont wrote X-Men from like 76 to like 96 almost. So like everything that's in the X-Men, the animated TV series, is pretty much all Chris Claremont stories. So when I saw that like, oh, it's George Lucas and Chris Claremont, literally putting together these extra Willow sequel stories, I'm like, that actually sounds kind of badass, and I was kind of interested in it. But it's interesting to hear that they're not well received or something like that. And even George is like, I don't really like these things, Yeah,
he just owned them, is what it said in the trivia.
Yeah.
Apparently they are too dark, and he didn't want it to be like that because he makes everything for kids. Whatever.
American Graffiti's for kids.
Yeah, everything's for kids unless it's really good. But if it sucks, it's for kids. That's why you don't like it.
It's the best cop out.
It is.
If you were a kid, you'd probably enjoy it. Like I'm just saying, But look at you.
Like, oh God, Phantom Menace was for kids, but it was also for adults. It was mainly for adults. It was mainly for people our age to go spend a ridiculous amount of money and camp out in front of the movie theater and complain on the internet for the next 30 years. That's what the Phantom Menace was for. Willow, mate, you have a stronger argument saying Willow is for kids.
Yeah, this one's one of those ones that's like, granted, you do have probably all the Star Wars people are showing up to this. I bet you that's the thing that's filling up those initial first weekends. It's just a bunch of people that like have been watching Star Wars since like 77, and they're showing up there. And you could see probably if you say like you were 20 years old in 77, and now it's almost 10 years later. You're going in there at like 30 years old to maybe watch Willow. That might be a little bit of a tough sell to you.
Yeah. This is definitely, I don't know. It's not that much better than the Ewok movies, really. Because those are actually pretty impressive for our TV. Those are really impressive in terms of just effects. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into the rewind review and look at this movie, because one thing I'll say about Willow, one thing I liked about it, it reminded me of Star Wars in the sense that there's it's pulling from a lot of areas. Because Star Wars, they say it's the old serials. Yeah, but it's a Western. Yeah, but it's Kurosawa. Yeah, but it's all the Joseph Campbell stuff. Well, it's all those things.
Yeah.
And this is like that too, where it's definitely got some Tolkien elements to it. Like very, very noticeably Tolkien elements to it. But it's also pulling from the same Joseph Campbell stuff, because you have some of the same archetypes you have in Star Wars, with Madmartigan being kind of like a Han Solo-esque character to an extent. And, you have the bad guy that's kind of a good guy, and the Princess Leia type character. And then Willow is kind of unique in that, but that's where the Tolkien comes in, because he's kind of like Frodo.
Yeah, or Bilbo really is what he a lot of times reminds me of a lot of.
More of Bilbo, yeah, you're definitely right in that.
Because it's just that thing where it's like, here's this guy who's just, he pretty much just literally a regular guy, working on a farm, got a family and all this stuff, and this baby comes down the river, and the kids find it, they're like, Dad, check it out, there's a baby and stuff like that. And I like how Willow first, he's like looking around over his shoulder, he's like, nobody else saw this, right? He's like, you just send that baby down the river. Let's act like we never saw that. It's somebody else's problem.
I feel that as a parent of two children, if I'm on a hike and I find a baby in the river, it's going to be a tough sell. It's going because I'm, we're finally getting back into sleep mode again. I'm like, I don't really need this. I know I'm going to fall in love with it. So
just kick it down the river right now.
Yeah. Willow's thing in this movie is that he wants to be more cold and stoic, and but he's got a huge heart, and he's kind of a dreamer. Warwick Davis, who, George Lucas met and befriended back in the days of Star Wars when he's a little kid. He's only 17 in this movie.
He's a weird. He looks like he's a middle-aged man. He's got a family, and all this stuff, working a farm. So he's like a Bruce Springsteen song here in like the olden days. But
yeah,
somehow, some way that he's only 17, which is so bizarre, because it's like you see pictures of him in Star Wars, and it's like, oh, he's a 10-year-old boy in that, putting on the Ewok suit, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, here he is, and it's just like, yeah, now he's just a full-grown adult. Well, I'm not full-grown, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like you totally buy him as like a dad with kids and stuff in this. Like if I didn't tell you he was 17, you probably wouldn't know. Like you can tell he's young, but yeah, it's totally believable. I was actually kind of shocked, but as soon as I was shocked when I heard he was 17, but then when I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense, because he was a little kid in Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. So, Willow's a good character. It's better than even some of the characters. Than some of the characters in Star Wars, But he's very Tolkien-esque. He's very Bilbo, but he's a dreamer. He wants to kind of be the apprentice, kind of like I guess the head sorcerer guy, the head wizard.
Yeah.
He wants to be like a wizard, essentially.
Yeah, the town wizard is he puts on a contest every year or something like that, and you got to guess the right finger, and if you guess the right finger, he'll take you as an apprentice, and if not, he'll get all pissy and then just storm off and say, next year, no soup for you.
Yeah. Well, you know what's weird about that, too? I thought, man, this is a shit game, because they should blindfold each person, because by the time I got to Willow, he had already knocked out 2 fingers. Like, this guy...
Yeah, that's what I thought, too. The first guy was screwed over.
Yeah, he has like way more. Like Willow's, got 2 phone a friends essentially in there. And I thought that was kind of weird, but I don't know. But yeah, so Willow's trying to be, a big part of the town. He's got these big dreams, big ambitions, but he's just kind of this lowly farmer. And you got this kind of like, how do I say this? Like bigger midget that's like
the town bully. Dick, pretty much.
The town chode. He is kind of bullying Willow a little bit, and kind of giving him a hard time. And he kind of reminds me of like Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. He seems like that kind of guy. Like he wants Willow's farm, and he's just kind of like throwing him under the bus. But he's more of a bully, just making fun of him. So Willow, but you could tell he's got a big heart. He loves his family. He loves his wife. And so the princess, which it's played by like 18 different babies, it seems like. From what I read, it was played mainly by a set of twins, which is a popular thing to do in the 80s and 90s. But I think it was like they had to use some other babies later because the one baby got too big. So then, like they're just shuffling through babies, which this baby goes through hell.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, like, I will say, like, the whole premise of, like, yo, you're going to take this baby from point A to point Z is one of those ones where you're like, whoa, did you think this out for a second? Like, are you sure you want a baby? You see, Labyrinth had it right. There's a baby in that movie, but that baby's only, like, in the beginning and the end. He literally gets stolen, practically, and that's about it. It's not like Jennifer Connelly's, like, dragging this baby around the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it gets kind of like I feel burdened by it. Like when I'm watching it, and like they could have just invented some way to like carry this baby a little bit better, or just like I don't know. But like he's just like walking through like ridiculously tough terrain, holding this like infant.
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah, and then listen, traveling with kids. I put my kids in a van with 2 tablets, and it's still hell. So like I don't know, like that was just I can't even imagine that. But yeah, so there's a princess, and essentially at the beginning of the story it's kind of like the Passover essentially. Mm-hmm. There's a prophecy of a child to be born with a special mark, and this child is going to kill the queen somehow, or
somehow the child's going to grow up to finally defeat the queen, and that's why she's like, no way we having this kid.
Yeah, so it's like the Nebuchadnezzar, I'm just going to kill everyone. I'm going to kill all the kids. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what's going on with this. And so at the very beginning, a child is born. It's clearly the child. This child is a special child. This child is, kind of whisked away. And at first, this random lady, what do they call those ladies? Those like
midwife?
Midwife, yeah. She's like trying to save this baby and take it somewhere. But she gets tracked down by these like really horrendous looking like the Rottweilers in these like rat costumes.
Yeah, like rat dog things.
Yeah, they're like fucking scary as shit.
Yeah, I kid you not. When I was playing that Willow game on NES, I came across one of those things. Yeah, it got me the first time.
Dang. Yeah, those things are vicious looking, man. Like, I think I would shit my pants if that came after me, actually.
Yeah, no, those are good creepy enemies where it's just like, yeah, you just take a dog and you give it some rat kind of suit thing, and it's just this weird chimera hybrid.
Yeah, it looks pretty good, too. Like, they're really good about kind of getting quick shots of it so you can't see the flaws in it, but these dogs are booking it, man, in these rat suits. But yeah, these dogs murder the lady, and she sends the baby down the river, and that's how it ends up with Willow. So now you have Willow, now you have a baby, and the town gets ransacked by these rat dogs. So now they're like, hey, we got to get this baby away. And then the town wizard, who's, just told Willow no, is like, oh, you got to take this baby. It's a special child, and you got to walk across Mordor or whatever, Middle Earth. And instead of dropping it into a volcano, you're going to take it to this place.
Yeah. Well, at first they're just like, you just got to go find the tall people and give it to one of them. I don't care who you give it to, just one of them. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, you're just doing your part of the mission, and that's it. You know.
Yeah, so the head council guy was like, yeah, you got to go this to one of the tall people, but you're going to have to get a crew with you. So, of course, he picks Willow's buddy, who's been kind of like the Samwise, kind of character. Mm-hmm. But then also the town dick comes along. And, Captain Chode. And
Captain Chode coming in there just to fucking bully and like, because like the whole point is there's that part early on where like Willow's doing like magic show and everything like that, and he messes up, and that guy's just like on the sideline laughing like, look at Willow, he messed up again, look at him. It's like literally just like, and everybody's fucking turning looking like that's like what this
shame.
Yeah, and then he's like trying to get rid of Willow pretty much at this point. And he's like, we'll have Willow go. He's like, and take Bob over there too. And they're like, dude, no. He's the best warrior in town. Don't give up Bob or whatever. And stuff like that. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right. How about you go instead? Whoa.
Yeah, Bob kind of looked like mini Prince.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. He had that kind of like curl going on. I don't know what it was. So he ends up going on this, very Tolkien-esque trek across, this mystical land where it's never really like, is this Earth? Is this like Earth at another time? What's the geography of this? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Is this Endor?
Yeah, it could have been Endor. Yeah. They totally could have made this a Star Wars thing.
Oh, it 100% could have been just like kind of converted over, like, Yeah,
take out the magic. You got like this Ewok that knows the Force somehow. And like you got this one ancient like Jedi Ewok. He's like, oh yeah, take this giant human child to the whatever. And why are there Wookiees here?
Yeah, maybe they're on Kashyyyk.
Yeah. So, so you got to go on this journey. You got to take this child back, and then along the way, it's they just kind of contrive different ways to give them trouble. But you meet the best character of the movie. Maybe not the best performance of the movie, but the best character of the movie is definitely Madmartigan.
Oh, Madmartigan. Yeah, he definitely does steal a lot of the show. Val Kilmer just really comes in here and kills it. And he's got great hair in this movie, too, to top it off.
Well, he's just one of those people. He's kind of too big for this. He just was, you know what I mean? Like, he just, he's the only really big star, and he's just coming off Top Gun. Mm-hmm. And he's just, he's in a different league than everybody else in this movie, except for the Queen, who does a really, really good job. But so he, they come across Madmartigan, and he's in this cage for doing, stealing something, presumably. And he just wants water, and they're totally just ignoring him. Which is, I love how they almost give him water, and then they drop it. And it was very annoying. But yeah, Val Kilmer's great in this movie. Madmartigan's awesome, and they rescue him, and he convinces him to give them the child, which is totally the wrong decision. And Willow knows it from the beginning. Like, should we have given that to this like that weird crazy guy? Like, and he's got a little bit of a Han Solo thing going on a little bit.
Yeah,
but even more suspicious.
Yeah, well, then Willow's buddy, the Samwise character, he's just like, yeah, no, it's good. Like, just give it to him. He looks right up. We can go back to the farm. It's gonna be great. Like, come on, Willow, this is what we do.
Yeah, let's go back to the Shire. Let's just go. Yeah, they abandoned Willow real quick.
Like, yeah, it's funny because he has this whole posse with him for a while, and they're like all gone, like literally about 1/4 into the movie. They're like, yep, we're all back. See ya, Willow. Hopefully Val Kilmer will take care of you.
Yeah, they basically, get out, which was probably a good thing because it would have been really annoying with them because you have Val Kilmer, but then you also they give him the baby. It gets stolen immediately by these little brownie characters.
Yeah, which this is what tells you it's a George Lucas movie is the two brownies because
Jar Jar.
Yeah, because of the Jar Jar. Well, have you ever seen the Akira Kurosawa movie, The Hidden Fortress?
A long time ago, but yeah.
Because I remember that was one of those ones that I always kind of knew about. I was like, oh, this is a big one, inspired Star Wars and all kinds of stuff like that. So one of these days, I'm like, give me that Criterion Collection version of it. I'm going to sit down and watch it. It's going to be amazing. It's Akira Kurosawa. And that movie literally has two guys in it that are supposed to be the comic relief, but they're really just obnoxious the whole time. And they got the dude who plays Yojimbo in there, and you're like, okay, cool, he's badass. I want to see him do stuff. And then these guys pop up like every other scene, and you're like, no, that's 100% what these brownies are. They are literally just like taken from the Hidden Fortress. Because it's like, yeah, R2-D2 and C-3PO are kind of like that, and those are the only characters that I think that kind of worked out for George Lucas's like comic relief ones. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because then it's like you see the brownie ones here, and it's not saying they don't have moments in it, but they are kind of obnoxious. They are definitely a make or break character. I will say, if somebody told me like, I don't know if I can watch Willow because of these guys, I'd be like, I kind of get it.
Yeah, no, they suck. They suck. They remind me. There's like, do you have Renaissance fairs out there?
We do. There's actually one coming up. I think literally like a week or so.
There's these characters called the Tortuga Twins. I think those are the ones that I hear, and they are pretty funny. But those characters kind of remind me of that. There's just these obnoxious. The jokes aren't even really there. They're just saying it in a funny way and being kind of like crazy. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, oh, we go this way. No, we go this way. No, we go this way. I'm like,
yeah, this using their goofy French accent or whatever.
Kind of French accent, like who said, like, oh my god, it's just, I don't know.
R2-D2 it's just the one where George is like, oh god, run! He's like, George, you calm down. He's like, wasn't that funny?
No, yeah, his George Lucas, man, I don't get it.
I think it's just that thing that he thinks this stuff is great fucking gold. Like that's got to be what. Once again, once I saw the Hidden Fortress, it literally all made sense because that's one of those movies. It's like I don't know. I got very mixed. It's Akira Kurosawa, and you hate to say you got the words mixed feelings from watching an Akira Kurosawa movie, but that's literally how I felt like with that one. At the end of the day, I'm like. I don't know about these comic relief way. It's such a dangerous. It sounds like that shouldn't be anything wrong with it, but it really is a very dangerous thing in a movie. Is that the comic relief character?
Here's the thing. Look, I feel like I have license to say this because I'm definitely in the same boat to an extent. But George Lucas is definitely on the spectrum, and the thing is, he's got like that Elon Musk sense of humor. But like he's creative in the sense he's great at world building. Mm-hmm. And the brownies aren't bad characters.
No.
Like having them in the movie isn't a bad idea. Having Jar Jar in Phantom Menace isn't a bad idea. It's just the essence of what that character is. And what you think is funny isn't fucking funny at all. And it's just, that's the problem. Like if I was rewriting, if I'm in 1997 and somebody drops Phantom Menace on my desk and I read it and I'm like, oh, leave Jar Jar in, but you're going to change some things. Like, we'll be changing every fucking thing, like the whole thing. Like, even if, change the name too. Just change the name. That's what I would have done with these brownies. It's just like cool characters, cool concept, but everything about their personality, change that. It's just R2-D2 and C-3PO work because of the dynamic. Mm-hmm. And C-3PO might have been just as annoying as the brownies, but you can't tell what he's saying. He's just beeping.
Oh yeah, R2-D2. Yeah, I think that actually fixes a lot. Is because the fact that R2-D2 doesn't talk.
Yeah, you could just infer that he's using a bunch of vulgar language, which is what I.
Yeah, I think it's the best way. Because if he talked, he could be Jar Jar. Then R2-D2 could maybe not be loved because of that.
Yeah. It always makes me laugh too when I'm watching Star Wars and they'll be like, "This is the first gay character." I'm like, "Did y'all not watch C-3PO in the original trilogy at all?" Like,
yeah, C-3PO and R2-D2. That's the first gay couple in Star Wars.
They're based on Bert and Ernie.
Yeah, exactly.
God, the first. It's like when they on Sesame Street and they're like, "Oh, we have the first homeless character." I'm like, Oscar the Grouch has been living in a goddamn trash can for 40 fucking years. You can tell me it's the first homeless character you got? Kiss my ass. Anyway, so anyway, I don't know why that's making me laugh so much, but it's true.
I don't know, but it's funny just when you also say it like Oscar the Grouch has been living there for 40 years.
He's been living in a goddamn trash can for 40 years. And they're like, this is our first homeless character. I'm like, no, it's not. Oh, man. That's why he's grouchy. He just gets forgotten about. Definitely my favorite character, Sesame Street.
Yeah,
out there. But yeah, and it sucks that the brownies are terrible because I like Kevin Pollak. Mm-hmm. And he goes on these podcasts and have he's a great storyteller. He has some really, really good stories, especially about Christopher Walken and how fucking weird that guy is. But yeah, they don't work in this movie. And I did read the trivia that they left one night to go do stand up, and then Robin Williams is there. They just let him take over the stage.
Yeah, what if Robin Williams was one of the brownies? Would that make any difference?
Yes. Oh my gosh, especially like 80s Robin Williams. You're gonna let that guy go? Because man, yeah. So anyway, yeah, so they meet up with these brownies. Still somehow get the baby from Val Kilmer. Probably wasn't that difficult. And they Willow chases them to somewhere, and they meet this fairy, which never comes back in the movie.
No, it just gives Willow a job.
This giant fairy, and yeah, that sounded dirty when you said it that way. But now Willow's got to go find this lady that he doesn't know is a possum, and yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So, yeah, but basically the middle of the movie kind of it's him trying to take care of this baby. He runs into Madmartigan. Madmartigan's pretending to be a French prostitute for some reason, and it never really explains why. And then they just kind of bounce around for a while. And the middle of the movie does kind of get dragged down a little bit until the very end, which the very end is really good.
Yeah, well, because like the middle part's like okay, even though the movie's not that long, so it's like not too bad. But yeah, there is some interesting things there where we find Val Kilmer in drag trying to get out of a situation, obviously sleeping with some dude's wife, and then he has to play it off, with a 5 o'clock shadow saying that he is a French whore. and the guy's buying it too. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I like him kind of rough like that.
That's why he's French.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of silliness ensues. Then the brownies have some type of like dust.
Yeah, love dust
that makes people fall in love with it. And at one point, he falls in love with the cat. I'm like, oh my god, where's this going?
George is like, this is the fun bestiality scene that I have in mind.
Yeah, he probably did. He had it all written out. He says, I'll just use this in my duck movie.
Ron, you gonna come help direct with me?
Opie, you bitch. So, yeah, it's just weird. The whole thing is weird, but it's fun. It's pretty good. People say the pacing is weird, and it is, but I didn't mind it. There's some scenes that end kind of abruptly and it skips to the next scene, and there's like a lot of jumps in time that you're like, well, what happened in between there? It seems like it would be, but I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And you get like a really cool horse and buggy kind of like car chase scene, but it was, with Madmartigan fighting off the bad guys and stuff. That was a really well done scene. A lot of really good stunts in there. Really, really exciting. Of course, you have James Horner's score.
Yes.
Which I'm a slut for James Horner. Like, 'cause the same year he has one of my favorite scores ever, which is the Land Before Time score.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, such a good. I think it's the same year. I think Land Before Time's 88.
I think it is too. Yeah.
But man, just such a good, musician, and he's the closest I think we've had to John Williams in terms of just capturing emotion. Mm-hmm. Which this one doesn't do that as much. It's more of a high adventure kind of theme, but it's good though.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And yeah, there is a lot of cool little action scenes and so on that kind of carried in between. And as you were saying, how it does sort of split up a bit. That doesn't bother me story-wise either, because I kind of like it because it keeps it like, you're always in a new location in this movie, which is kind of neat. Mm-hmm. You're only in a place for like 10 to 15 minutes, and then you're somewhere else, and then you're somewhere else. So it's always traveling, because that's always something that's always kind of been like a complaint I always have in certain movies, is like when they just feel like, okay, cool, the first part of the movie's great, like they're traveling all over the place in the first half an hour, and then all of a sudden they get stuck in one location the whole time, and then it just is like, you kind of look at it and go like, are you just trying to save money by using only one location now? Like, what's going on here? And this one's pacing is always keeps going. It's always going somewhere. They're always somewhere new. They got all kinds of neat stuff. They're going from like, okay, you got that cool cart chase scene. The next thing you know, they're at like the lake and whatnot there. And there's actually a cool deleted scene that goes along with that lake that they don't use, where poor Willow's thrown out on a boat, and like, he's just getting hit by like a hurricane, and they have a Jaws like shark boy that comes after him and so on. Did you see any of that?
No, I didn't.
So they cut quite a bit in this movie, which was actually kind of cool to see this one, because it seems like they kind of have everything. It's not like one of those movies where it's like, okay, well, all that footage is kind of gone, lost, and in the trash. It's probably pretty well preserved. But so they had a big old scene where like literally like I think once Willow meets the sorceress lady, who's now turned to a possum and so on like that there, I think he has to take a boat out there, because they kind of show him looking at a boat, but then it kind of doesn't say too much with it. I think Madmartigan comes back by that point, but he's out in like the ocean, whatever, in the boat, and there's just water's coming at him and so on like that, and it's just like a hurricane out there. And then there's this like fish boy he meets beforehand, and then it looks almost like Jason Voorhees from like Friday the 13th 1, and then he jumps in the water, turns into a giant fish monster thing, like almost like Resident Evil 4, and Willow's got to fight him out there. And and then, like when you see the deleted scene, it looks a little bit kind of like hokey in a sense, like a knockoff Jaws thing, probably because they just didn't finish all this stuff that they would have kind of had to dial it in. But for the most part, though, it still is pretty darn cool looking, and they did put a lot of effort into that scene. That it's interesting to see that be cut, because that looked like that was not cheap to just chop out of the movie.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because when that scene happens in the movie, so he leaves the little girl in like a little thing. I'll be right back, and as soon as he did that, I'm like, some shit's about to go down. But in the movie, nothing happens. He goes to the island. He finds the possum lady, because I'm a possum lady. Like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And then like, oh, the baby's here. And then next thing you know, it cuts very abruptly to them holding the baby.
Yeah.
So I guess what happened in the movie was he goes to that island, and then on the way back, that happens, and it's suspenseful, because you're like, oh, you got to get back to the baby, because the baby's on the shore. So I guess that's, because it does seem to suggest something's about to happen. There's some foreshadowing the way he says it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, nothing happens.
Yeah, so that was kind of, and the other big thing too is because at the beginning of the movie, the wizard dude gives Willow like 3 of these stones. He's like, "Oh, chuck this at something whenever you need to." And if you look, he gives him 3 at the beginning, and then technically in the theatrical cut of the movie, Willow only uses 2 of them, but the very last one makes it feel like that was his total final one. Well, he actually uses one of the stones like against the fish thing, and that's where he loses the second one at.
Gotcha. Yeah, because probably the first one, because the second one was when he's fighting the Harryhausen kind of dragon thing, which was such a weird design for a dragon, but it worked.
Yeah, the Siskel and Ebert monster.
Yeah. Yes.
It just looks like 2 penis heads.
Yeah,
that's a George Lucas like yeah, I got that kind of money. Yeah, we're gonna make Siskel and Ebert. So they named some of the more grotesque monsters in this movie. If you don't know, they named them after movie critics, which is brilliant. That's badass. It's like that's the ultimate filmmaker thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know what they would have made us.
We're talking high praise of Willow. You got to be one of those bad, like, negative Nancy film critics. Let's be honest, like Siskel and Ebert, like nobody really likes those guys. You know,
No, I did, but
they have their moments. But I remember, like, what is it when Ebert or whatever got like cancer and whatnot? Like they literally like threw him so far under the bus finally, like.
yeah,
It was like he was just asking for it by that point, because I can't remember, he shit on some movie that everybody really liked and they took it out on him.
yeah, they got him a lot. You know, he loved the movie Anaconda though for some reason. I've always blew my mind, and I've never seen it. So
it's a good one. It's got Danny Trejo in it for like a second.
it's got Pete J-Lo in it. So
yeah, that's probably why he liked it a lot.
Probably. But yeah, that makes sense because he uses one of the little things against. He drops one when he's fighting the dragons, and it turns like the wood and the stone for a second. And then the second one in the theatrical cut he uses against the queen. Mm-hmm. So that makes. I was wondering when the third one was going to come out, and I was like, oh, okay, he had one to spare, I guess. Yeah, because I'd seen this movie, but it'd been so damn long. It's like I watched it when I was a kid. I watched this off bootleg, by the way, VHS.
Oh yeah,
Uncle Jody. Yeah,
nice. Well, that's the one I had. Mine was a taped off TV version, so.
Yeah, mine was too. And this is one of the rare ones that he didn't tape it off like HBO or something like that. He taped it off like ABC or something. Yeah, so I had commercials and shit in it, but I remember liking it. But yeah, so. They have to bounce around. Did it ever answer what the situation was with the people in stone?
Oh, when they go to the castle and everybody's sealed up there? You talk about when they go to the castle and there's like everybody's like, in that stone thing. So, okay, that's another deleted story arc that's kind of this one's a goofy one because, okay, the fish monster thing, I kind of get it. Like that felt like it just didn't come out the way they sort of wanted to. But there's the third character, I guess you would say, of the movie, which is what's her name? And it's pretty much the chick character of it, but
Sorsha,
yeah. So Sorsha, who starts off kind of like a bad character, she's literally the daughter of like the Empress lady. And so she's coming out hunting for the baby, she's got her like, other soldiers and so on like that. But as time goes on, she's kind of converted over to be good in a sense, falls in love with Val Kilmer so much that she ends up marrying him after the movie. True. All that kind of stuff. But, so what there's a bunch of scenes that they cut out. She had a whole other storyline where she was looking for her father and she couldn't find her father and all this kind of stuff there. And her mother was just giving her like no information on what really happened to him, something like that. And when they finally, get to the stone area, she finds her father's in one of those stones and she's able to free him from that. And then she also has lines towards the end once they finally go to the final battle about being like, hey, why didn't you tell me anything about my father? He is alive. I found him, and all this kind of stuff, And then strange enough, in the theatrical version, at the very, very end of the movie, when they're all standing there like and everybody's celebrating and whatnot, the father's actually standing in the background. But they don't bring any attention to it by this point because they cut that earlier story stuff out.
That makes so much sense because golly, so they butchered this movie a little bit.
It's weird because it's not like it's one of those ones like in other movies be like, yeah, producers came in and said cut that shit out, we need to make this shorter. It's like Ron Howard and all those guys decided to do all this. They thought the movie was just running a little too long and everything like that. And I think in the longest run, this would be one of those movies that I think could be re-released as like hey, here's an extended cut. You don't need to call it like director's cut or anything. Just say it's an extended cut. That doesn't take away from the theatrical version. That just says, hey, here's this other version you can check out. If you like it, cool, but we're just going to put the extra scenes back in there because they're all there and they're all finished and edited and so on. So
that's really difficult because to an extent they're right. This movie's already kind of feels long anyway at 2 hours because it's just drags a little bit. But those especially the princess, we'll call her the warrior princess. Mm-hmm. Her story is kind of odd. And in the scene where she kind of decides to fall in love with Val Kilmer, it's very weird in the movie.
It's very George Lucas-y.
Yeah, because it's amazing that man's ever seen a vagina. If he didn't have $1 billion, I'm convinced he wouldn't. Like the dialogue in Attack of the Clones, it's just like, have you ever?
It's because he's got a good head of hair. Let's be honest, like,
and $1 billion.
and $1 billion.
Yeah, those two things help. He was married before Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, exactly. He had a super editor, and then she's gone by this movie.
Yeah. So yeah, that whole storyline is very abrupt, and she just all of a sudden she's watching them fight her comrades. It's like, I'm in love with this guy. But if you add that happens at the place where her father was supposedly frozen in a rock, and that they don't address in the theatrical cut of the movie. If you add that part in there, you start to see, because now if you add that part back in there, you understand why she hates her mother now. She started to really like, hey, why am I listening to this lady? Why am I going to kill this baby? Why don't I go hang out with Val Kilmer? Because she lied to me about my dad. So it makes way more sense. But you kind of have to cut it too, because it's, the movie is kind of long as is. So
yeah, well, and the weird thing too is like the movie's long, but then it's also not that long, because it's only like, it's just barely 2 hours or whatever. It's like 2 hours and 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
So for the fact that it's it's kind of an epic movie. You easily, I feel like, have room for an extra 20 minutes in there, and it wouldn't really take out too much. Even like an extra, and I'll say, as the father scenes, you probably could have fit them in less than 10 minutes. Probably 5 minutes would have covered them all, and that would have filled in that whole extra story thing. That would make her character make a little bit more sense, and why she kind of just has that turn. Because it's like the weirdest thing. It's like Val Kilmer gets like the stupid pixie dust that gives him like the love medicine from the brownies, and he accidentally breathes that in. So then when he was supposed to go and steal the baby back, he had all this love like dust in him that he was like talking all this stuff to her, nonsense to her, and then for some reason it worked though. Well, probably because it's Val Kilmer, let's be honest. It doesn't matter what he said. He could be speaking gibberish and it would still probably work, but Val Kilmer, 88, come on.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those ones, but yeah, she does have that hard turn, but like once you see those like deleted scenes, it's like, dude, Ron, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, it just, there's some weird stuff they took out of this movie. It would definitely have benefited from a Peter Jackson kind of like, I'm just going to throw this in here anyway.
Yeah, it needs like that Lord of the Rings extended cut version. Like, yeah, you got the theatrical version, but here's this extended one. And once again, that would have been such a bad one for like a good re-release, especially I think because when this Willow version came out, the DVD one, because this came out around the same time. It's got the similar look to like when they put Star Wars on DVD. But about that time period would have been the Lord of the Rings era. That would have been the perfect place to be like, yeah, here's an extended cut of Willow. You know what I mean? With an extra like 15, 20 minutes thrown in there. People would have ate it up in the mid-2000s.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think people were hankering for that. When they brought down 4K, people have been wanting it for a long time. And, there was kind of a resurgence in love for Willow. And I think what killed that was that TV series, which is apparently atrocious.
Yeah.
And I've never watched it, but I do. One thing I did watch, I think I've told you this before. My brother messaged me. He watched it, and he had never even seen the original movie. And I don't know if he went and watched it after. And I don't know. But he's like, "Why is Enter the Sandman playing in the end credits for like a Willow version?" I was like, "No, it's not." I think it was like the second or third episode. So I went just to watch the end of that, and it was like, but it was like a medieval kind of sounding like, and it's got this lady singing Enter Sandman. I'm like, what the fuck?
The hell is going on?
It's just like, you don't know what this is. And right then I'm like, they don't know what the fuck this is.
No, it's another one of those issues that I hate to sort of say, if it's not George, I don't care. I literally do not care. I'm at that point, like, if you have a George Lucas story and George isn't involved in it, it's not, you're just making goofy fan fiction now. And
yeah, unless like Filoni got some stuff from him. I don't like Filoni that much, but I think he's valuable to Star Wars and Lucasfilm for other reasons. But I don't like him being in charge of stories. But Yeah, I kind of agree with you. But real quick, did you see that Kennedy is stepping down finally?
I did see something pop up like that, so I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, as long as they don't make Dave Filoni the head. Like, he needs to be there, but you need like a Jon Favreau to balance him out. I want Favreau. I love Jon Favreau. He's really, really good, but I would like to see their version of Willow. I like to see them take it on and do something with it, because I think this would have been better as a series, to be honest with you.
You could extend it out. I mean, I'll say this: if that Willow's, when they did the series, in a sense, for the sequel, it's one of those ones. I felt like it did feel like it was kind of undercut. Like, this probably should have just been a sequel of a movie because of just what it is. Mm-hmm. You know, I know that the series things were all popular. Then that was like when the Dark Crystal had its little extra run and so on like that too, for other 80s sci-fi or fantasy type stuff. But I mean, yeah, fantasy stuff can work in a slower pace. If you do it like Xena Warrior Princess style, where each one's episodic, might not be so bad. But
yeah, I don't know. It would have been interesting to see, but The Willow is a solid movie, though. It really, really is. It's fun. I think it just didn't get the credit just because of the disappointment, but Willow's good. Willow is...
Yeah.
When I remember when I watched it again, I watched it when I was a kid and then watched it for years. And when I watched it a few years ago, I'm like, this is a good movie. This is a legit good movie. I thought I was going to really hate it. But interesting thing, and beyond, like, this is a question I was going to ask some people. Which is better, Willow or the Star Wars prequels? Because I would say, from a storytelling perspective, Willow is actually better than the Star Wars prequels. It doesn't have that same magic.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the Star Wars-ness. Yeah, by that standard, yeah. Well, I mean, as someone who does actually like the prequels quite a bit, yeah, that is a tough one, because it's one, like, I'm very nostalgic for Willow. I really like it a lot. I don't think it's definitely not a perfect movie. It's like, it really, at the end of the day, if I was going with a Laird Malton rating, I would say it's like a 3 out of 4, which is still, I think, a really solid film. I think it might be a little hard to sell for certain audiences, but for the most part, if you like old school fantasy, it's really badass. I mean, we didn't even really talk too much about, like, really one of the coolest parts of the movie is when you get to that last action scene, and there's a lot going on there, because now you've got all these special effects coming together. You got the cool Harryhausen, Siskel and Ebert, like, big old cock monster things fighting each other there, shooting flames out and everything like that.
Which, by the way, the death of that monster, when he stabs it in the, like, nasal throat area, and then he tries to breathe fire, and his head just fucking explodes.
Yeah, it gets violent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was even a scene in there too when that's not the last battle; it's the next last battle. But there's these random troll things that show up.
Oh, yeah, and they're really creepy. Like, the first time you see it, like, it does not point anything out. It's just like, it's old school, like, no jump scares or anything like that. Fucking Willow's running across this bridge, and there's this black, like, furry, like, creature just crawling on the side. You're like, the hell was that? And, like, why was it crawling, like, upside down under the bridge? Like, it almost looked like a glitch. And then you're like, oh, no, there's these weird troll things coming out.
Yeah, it is really, really creepy. They did a great job with those little troll things in terms of, watching them go across the wall, because it does kind of like, is that a mistake for a second? Like, what is that? And then it shows back up. But even when he kills one of them, like, it just kind of turns into this brain. It's very much like The Thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always think about when I see that. Yeah,
it's like a brain, and it has these, like, little alien xenomorph looking things coming out of it, but it looks like a mix between Alien and The Thing. And then he just kind of kicks it into the water, the moat down below. But man, I was like, this is fucking some crazy shit for a kids movie.
Yeah. It gets super violent for PG. It's like, it's because this is also when PG-13 actually exists. So it's like, the fact that this movie still holds a PG is actually kind of mind blowing.
The 80s. Yeah, I was trying to see what it's rated PG-4, but I don't see that on there.
Yeah, it's too early for that. But yeah, no, that last action scene, it's cool. They're in a castle, they're fighting. It kind of also reminds me somewhat of, like, Army of Darkness in a weird way, like, just the setup of it. There is another villain guy that really doesn't have a whole lot of lines. It almost is kind of like the archetype Darth Vader character, where he's got the cool, like, skull, like, almost like monkey mask thing on.
Reminds me of Masters of the Universe, like.
Yeah. Yeah, Skeletor very much, but he doesn't. I feel like he's kind of an underused character. He's there, but he looks cool. He's almost like Boba Fett. He's there, he looks cool, but like they don't really give him a whole lot to do, as much. I mean, he fights Val Kilmer and so on, but he doesn't say a whole lot.
If they would have done this as a series, he reminded me. I don't know if you ever watched Game of Thrones, which was
no,
good.
I never have.
Don't watch. I would never recommend anybody to watch it because they end it so badly. Not because not what you want to happen, just because it's just so poorly written. Like they just didn't give a fuck anymore. But there's this character in there in the early seasons when the show is really, really good. It's called the Hound, and that character reminded me of the Hound a little bit. But yeah, that could have been a really, really cool character if they'd done it better. But Madmartigan, the thing is with him, the whole movie, like he keeps saying he's a great sword fighter, but he never really gets a chance to prove it until the end. And there's one duel where he kind of gets him out of the snow area, but then another duel at the end where he's fighting the mountain or the Hound type character, and that was really, really cool.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of great stuff at that last action part there. Even that snow part that comes right beforehand is actually a pretty sweet scene too. Yeah.
Except the sledding's cool. The part where he gets rolled up in the snow is very Looney Tunes. It's very just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's once again I always call it. That's got to be the George joke. George thinks that's probably the greatest thing. He's going to come rolling down. It looks like a pig's in a blanket coming down, and he explodes on the wall, and snow goes everywhere. Yeah. And even though it's this guy's house, he doesn't seem to bother. He's actually kind of down with it.
He's cool. Just white powder in everybody's faces.
I love how there's literally a line that George has in the special features where it just sounds so funny because he's like this movie is driven by special effects, but I don't make special effects movies. I make character movies.
Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should let somebody else do that. Which I will give him credit though. He did what he should have done with the prequels in this one. He got a different director. He got brought in another writer because what you need, George is great. You just need somebody to consolidate this crazy batshit ideas into a cohesive story. He didn't have that with the prequels. That's what Favreau does to Filoni. He didn't have that later on, but at least in this one, he had that going for him. But he tried to get Ron Howard for the prequels too, and it didn't work out. But so the last end of the movie is cool. They all get turned into pigs for a minute, which is kind of weird. Some pretty cool effects. Reminded me of Warcraft.
Yeah,
for a second. Yeah,
you get that kind of orc look and so on like that. And then you get the cool morphing ability, which is the first time it ever appeared, where when Willow's first, he tries to find that pretty much that sorceress lady he's been looking for, and she's in the animal form, and then Willow keeps trying to change her back because that's what she's like, Willow, turn me back, and every single time he turns to a different animal, so she goes from being like the possum thing to being like a goat to being like a llama. What the hell else does she become? She becomes a few things. She becomes a tiger at some point, and then she eventually gets turned back into a woman. She's like, I'm the most beautiful lady ever. Oh, I'm 80 years old now. Willow, you son of a bitch!
It's like the lady that crawls out of the bathtub and shining.
Yeah, it really is.
That's what she reminded me of. Especially she's like holding her arms out. I'm like, no.
She's like, I thought I was going to turn back into a human and then go out with this Val Kilmer, but now look at me. Willow!
And then the camera pans and there's just this guy in a dog suit, like
staring. That's my favorite part of The Shining. I don't know what it is. The guy in the dog suit it's like 2 seconds of a movie, but it's just like that part there. So weird.
Everybody on set would be like, oh my God, he just ruined the movie. So like the end of the movie is really cool. The end fight scene is some really good effects in there. It definitely reminded me of, even though Lord of the Rings hadn't come out yet, it reminded me of the fight. I think that's in Two Towers. I can't remember where. Maybe it's the first one. The Gandalf is fighting the
Saruman
guy. Saruman, yeah.
Or Sauron?
Yeah.
No, Saruman. Yeah, Saruman's the wizard. Sauron's the eye.
Yeah. When he's fighting Saruman, and they were just kind of like going. There's some similar, things to that. Well, first of all, the lady that was the possum she looks like Gandalf in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like just imagine
woman Gandalf.
Yeah, just imagine Gandalf as a woman with no beard.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, that's what he would look like. And then the other lady kind of looks like Saruman, but more also like the evil witch from like Sleeping Beauty or
Snow White.
Beauty, but Snow White, more like Snow White. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have like a really cool fight, and Willow saves the day with his little magic tricks that weren't working at the first of the movie.
Yeah, they finally did, And of course, those stone balls really never get used properly. He thinks he gets, he throws one at her, makes her hand turn to stone, but since she's such a great sorceress, she turns herself back.
Yeah, and it crumbles it up.
Yeah.
And like, that was hard. I like that. That was really, really cool. But yeah,
that's where they should have rocked that Inner Sandman part.
Yes. Oh man, they need to do a project where they add that to the end of movies now, or like epic fight scenes or something. Like, do you ever see the Walk of Life project?
I don't know if I have.
The Walk of Life project was this thing this guy did, or maybe it was a girl. I don't know who it was. Where it was like their theory was you can use the Walk of Life by Dire Straits, and you know what song I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Okay, I know that.
And you can put that at the end of any movie, and so they did. They just make all these endings with like. So yeah, I think we should do one where we just put Inner Sandman into everything. Like, I mean, honestly, like you watch a lightsaber battle with Inner Sandman playing, like that sounds dope.
Yeah, it's gonna go hard.
Yeah, Mad Max, Inner Sandman, going into a sand tornado. You know where it doesn't work? It doesn't work in Willow.
Yeah, Willow. That's not the right place.
I wonder if all the credits have like movies, like all the credits of that TV show has like really classic rock songs. It's like, okay, this episode 3 is Back in Black. it's like
episode 4 is Balls to the Wall.
Balls to the Wall. A Sweet Child of Mine in there. Goodness gracious.
The ending of Willow is Wang Tang Sweet Poontang.
Is it Wango? Is it Tango?
But it's all folky.
Dude, no. A Stranglehold medieval would go hard. Like
that'd be pretty sweet.
Like Willow gets like his like wand out, and he's like down. Disney's head would unfreeze if they fucking used Ted Nugent and something like that. The whole place would just fucking implode. Oh my god! Oh my
Uncle
god.
Ted!
Dude, like, oh man, Twitter like, oh, Uncle Ted would literally make Disney just crumble, man. Just if they used him in something. Oh my god, the heads that would roll. Oh man, the heads that would roll. So. Anyway, yeah, there's no Ted Nugent in Willow, but it's still fun.
Yeah. No. That's the thing is Willow's one of those ones. It fits in really great with those classic 80s fantasy movies. It probably is the pinnacle of all of them, realistically, at the end of the day.
I think so.
You might have a personal favorite, but I think it's the most well-made one for sure. Yeah,
it depends if you want to add the Conan movies into that category or not.
Oh, well, that I guess that's true. Once you throw the sword and sandals like barbarian movies, I was thinking more along the lines of like what I always call just like straight pure fantasy, like in a sense, where Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, of course Willow. I'm drawing a blank on another
Even
one.
Kroll and Beastmaster.
Legend. Yeah, well, Beastmaster, I guess, true. When you start to get those ones, I feel like those fall in that sword and sandal one. It's a little bit different, I guess. Mm-hmm. It still has fantasy elements, of course, but that's like in that Conan and all that stuff. But But yeah, no, Willow I think does deliver a lot, and I feel it's one of those ones. If anybody's a fan of, if you're just a fan of Star Wars and George Lucas stuff, I don't see why you wouldn't like Willow. You know, if you really like Indiana Jones and you really like Star Wars, it kind of feels like here's the third kind of big movie of George's, you know, the American Graffiti.
Yeah, it's kind of Lucasfilm of that era when they're firing on all cylinders has this intrinsic, like some type of magic. You can't really quantify it. It's just got this warm, homey feel, at least for me. And Willow does get some of that in there. And I think this is, compared to some of those other movies, it's way more coherent. I think it's actually a pretty good plot. I think it's actually, other than them taking the things out that would have made the movie better, in my opinion. I think it's, you know, I think it's a pretty solid movie. I definitely don't think, this is definitely one of those movies I watch where I look at the critic score and I'm like, it doesn't feel that way to me. I'm not going to say they're wrong because it's, you know, it's an aggregate of different opinions, but to me, it's better than what the score says overall. So,
yeah, and I think that's what it is. But at the same time, it's one of those movies where I do kind of get it. If somebody doesn't really like it, it's not like one of those ones like, what do you mean you don't like it? It's like, I can kind of get it. It's not for everybody. I'll definitely say it is a movie that you're either going to really enjoy it or you'll be like, oh, that was okay. You know, I think it does kind of carry a little bit of that, you know. But at the same time, I think it's class. I think it's, at the end of the day, what it really is, it's a filmmaker's movie. If you really enjoy filmmaking and you really enjoy special effects and you really enjoy just like all that kind of stuff, it's excellent for that. And it's got some really good special features too, you know, if you got the DVD or Blu-ray or any of that kind of stuff. And they got them up on YouTube and everything nowadays too. But there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So I think that's where it really stands out a lot too, is just how much do you appreciate classic cinema and especially classic industrial light and magic stuff.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it is the end of an era film. Dude, there's a lot of fantasy movies in the 80s. And they have, it's a special, unique time because there wasn't a whole lot of fantasy in the 90s. I'm having trouble.
I mean, there's Dragon, what's the one of Sean Connery? Dragonheart.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons. There is a few of them, but they weren't. It feels that they were a much different beast in the 90s when there was fantasy stuff, you know.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't like it was in the 80s.
No,
because there was a lot of it. You could even throw Highlander in there to an extent.
Yep.
So there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of really bad stuff, but Willow to me is the most coherent of them all. And of course, you have the ILM crew. If you like special effects, I mean, you have all the, you know, Murin and all those guys, like the big wigs over there. So, Willow's definitely worth watching if you've never seen it. If you're a Lucas Spielberg kind of lover, this is definitely one. Ron Howard, I love Ron Howard too. So, and it's directed well, it's paced well overall. Some weird deleted scenes that would have made the movie better, but pretty cool effects for its time. The movie has heart, for sure. And it,
Warwick Davis really carries it like super strong too.
Warwick Davis is so good in it. And really even, you know, when you find that actors are such a niche, you know what I mean? Like we're going to find out all little people. Okay. What's the odds that you find so many good actors?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they did. Like, not saying that, let me make this clear. I'm not saying they can't be good actors. What I'm saying is if you boil any demographic down to such a small group of people and you have to find that many actors in that group of people, you know, not everybody's talented like that. So to find that many of them that could carry, I mean, that's actually kind of impressive just logistically. You know what I mean? Like you could say that for any group of people, but yeah, I mean, it was the perfect time for this movie in a lot of ways. It was the worst time in a lot of ways, but Willow's fun. Definitely go watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think we spoke of this with like there's a previous. I think it was like kind of Blue Thunder almost when we mentioned that. But like Willow is that like transferring like tail end of the decade, and just in a couple of years later, cinema changes quite a bit. And this holds, you know, that good end of the 80s all wrapped up there. And, you know, once again, like it's only like, you know, a year or so later we got The Abyss, and then we're going into Terminator 2 and all that stuff. So,
and you don't get any more real fantasy. You don't get a lot of big fantasy until Lord of the Rings comes out.
Yeah, really, there's almost a skip. There's almost like a 10-year period where there's not a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. And then Lord of the Rings, I think, is another reason this movie kind of went to obscurity a little bit, because it's kind of like, I think if you love Lord of the Rings a lot, you'll look at this movie as like a great value brand. Lord of the Rings, like it doesn't match up. Even though ILM probably did a lot of stuff with those two. I know the Weta Digital did a lot of stuff, but yeah. But go watch Willow. It's on Disney Plus. If you've never seen it, if you have Disney Plus, go watch it there. Also go watch the Industrial Light and Magic. I think it's called Light and Magic is the name of the documentary. It's like a 4-part documentary series, I think. Mm-hmm. If you love movies, fucking incredible. I celebrate. I love ILM anything.
Yeah, especially those olden days of ILM.
Mm-hmm. Lucasfilm ILM. I've been wanting to get an ILM T-shirt because I love that logo they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get one of those. But anyway, thanks for listening to another episode of the Via VHS Retro Movie Podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Willow. More stuff coming up ahead, as always. If you want to find all those stuff that Spencer does, Linktree is there in the description. You can go find oldmanorange.com and all the podcasts and comics that he does and different things like that. Via VHS on X, at Via VHS on TikTok, which is where I spend the most of my time lately, while we still have it. So if you have any opinions on this, obviously you could drop a comment in the YouTube or subscribe, which we'd really appreciate, or follow us on Spotify, or you can come over and talk to us on social media. But anyway, thank y'all for listening to everything. Y'all have a good one, and Via VHS is out.